Hello, and welcome to the Quality Control staff presentation that discusses the resources component, specifically people resources in a firm's QC system. My name is Lynette Kleindens, and I'm an assistant in the PCAOB's Office of the Chief Auditor. Today's staff presentation is one in a series of staff presentations that address the requirements of QC 1000, the PCAOB's new standard on quality control, which takes effect on December 15th, 2025. Given the intent of this presentation is to focus on certain aspects of only one of the components of the firm's QC system, we will not be discussing all of the nuances of the standard and related amendments. Therefore, I encourage participants to read the adopting release in order to gain a more complete understanding of the new standard and related amendments, and explore other implementation resources that have been issued to date, including a staff presentation and staff guidance document that provide an in-depth overview of QC 1000 and guidance for firms about how to comply with the standard. All of this can be found on the PCAOB's website. Before we get started, I'll state our standard disclaimer. The views expressed are offered in my capacity as staff of the PCAOB's Office of the Chief Auditor, but they are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the board as a whole, any individual board members, or other PCAOB staff. In our staff presentation on a firm system of quality control, an overview of QC 1000, we briefly covered 8 integrated components of the firm's QC system that are required to be included in a firm's design of its QC system. These components are consistent with other quality management standards and are presented on the slide. Today, we will be talking about the resources component, the component circled on the chart in red. This component addresses the firm's processes for obtaining, developing, using, maintaining, allocating, and assigning the firm's resources to enable the design, implementation, and operation of the firm's QC system and the performance of its engagements. Resources include people, financial, technological, and intellectual resources, and resources from a network or third-party provider. In today's staff presentation, we are focusing on people resources. A separate staff presentation on technological and intellectual resources is also available on the QC implementation webpage on the PCAOB's website. People resources are a large part of the firm's QC system and one of the most critical resources within a firm. The resources component includes several quality objectives specifically focused on a firm's people resources, whether it's firm personnel, other participants, or individuals who are third-party providers. Let's spend some time reviewing the definitions of each of the people resources. In general, it is important to understand which bucket a firm's people resources fall into because they are different quality objectives, risks, that apply, and consequently, the quality risk will differ depending on the quality objectives. This slide includes a graphical depiction of the definition of firm personnel from the adopting release, which can be found on page 51. The definition can be found in paragraph A5 of Appendix A of QC 1000. Firm personnel are individual proprietors, partners, shareholders, members or other principals, accountants, and professional staff of a registered public accounting firm whose responsibilities include assisting with the performance of the firm's engagements or the design, implementation, or operation of the firm's QC system, including engagement quality reviews. Professional staff includes employees as well as individuals such as non-employee contractors and consultants who work under the firm's supervision or direction and control and function as the firm's employees. These individuals include, for example, secondees and lease staff who work under the supervision or direction and control of the firm. Professional staff does not include persons engaged only in clerical or ministerial tasks. Some examples of firm personnel include an engagement quality reviewer who is an employee or a partner of the firm, personnel at a shared service center where the structure is such that the shared service center is part of the firm, secondees and lease staff under the supervision and direction and control of the firm, and specialists employed by the firm. I want to emphasize that professional staff includes employees as well as individuals, such as non-employee contractors and consultants who work under the firm's supervision or direction and control and function as the firm's employees. One can think of these individuals as having a relationship with the firm that is similar to an employment relationship, even though they are not formally employed by the firm. For example, a secondee from another firm who is temporarily assigned to work at the firm but is fully integrated into the firm's QC system. This individual would follow the firm's policies and procedures and would be held accountable for their actions and behaviors, just like any other firm personnel. Another example would be a leased employee who is brought in through an external staffing agency, but who works under the supervision and control of the firm. This individual would use this firm's system and tools and would contribute to the firm's engagements as if it were an internal employee. In both of these examples, such individuals would be treated as firm personnel under QC 1000 based on their relationship with the firm. If a firm's people resources do not fit the definition of firm personnel, then they generally are other participants. Here's a graphical depiction of the definition of other participants from the adopting release, which can be found on page 51. The definition can be found in paragraph A7 in Appendix A to QC 1000. With respect to work performed in connection with the firm's QC system or the performance of its engagements, other participants are accounting firms, foreign or domestic, registered or unregistered, accountants, and other professionals or organizations other than firm personnel whose responsibilities include assisting with the performance of the firm's engagements or the design, implementation, or operation of the firm's QC system, including engagement quality reviews. Some examples include network personnel, other auditors, specialists engaged by the firm, and professionals from outside the firm performing engagement monitoring activities. The persons performing some roles, such as an engagement quality reviewer or personnel at shared service centers, may be either firm personnel or other participants, depending on their relationship with the firm. For example, an engagement quality reviewer employed by the firm would be considered firm personnel, whereas one that has been contracted from outside the firm that is not functioning as a firm employee would be an other participant. Similarly, personnel at shared service centers may be firm personnel if they are employed by the firm or function as firm employees, or other participants if they are employed by another organization, such as a network affiliate. I would like to clarify an important point about other participants. If a firm decides to use other participants on its engagements or in the firm's QC system, the firm's QC system should recognize the involvement of the other participants, and the standard requires the firm to oversee their use in the firm's engagements or QC system. Let me illustrate. If a firm uses the work performed by or receives direct assistance from a company's internal auditors to obtain evidence about the effectiveness of internal control over financial reporting, it may need to follow specific policies and procedures to assess the internal auditor's objectivity and competence. In another example, if a firm engages specialists in the performance of its engagement, it may need to follow specific policies and procedures related to information to be communicated to these other participants in order to enable them to understand and carry out their responsibilities related to the performance of the engagement. QC 1000 references other participants throughout the standard. The firm would need to understand how other participants fit in their QC system and engagements and what specific quality risks exist and develop responses to address these quality risks. While it may be beneficial and in many cases essential to use other participants on engagements or in the firm's QC system, these arrangements can pose risks because other participants may not be subject to the same quality controls as firm personnel. For example, with regard to personnel assignments, training, supervision, and monitoring. While some other participants may be covered by their own firm's quality control system, the firm's own quality control system is required to address all the work done on the firm's engagements and in connection with the design, implementation, and operation of the firm's QC system, regardless of who does it. The firm's policies and procedures for addressing other participants should differentiate based on the types of roles and roles of other participants to the extent necessary to be responsive to the firm's quality risks. When designing quality responses, the firm will address the specific risks posed by the other participants and their responsibilities within the firm's engagements and QC system. For example, a firm that uses a network as a resource in many areas, such as independence tracking and monitoring, engagement performance, information communication, and monitoring and remediation, would have many quality risks and quality responses related to their use of the network. To contrast, a smaller firm that only uses one individual from outside the firm as an engagement quality reviewer may have fewer quality risks and quality responses related to other participants. When designing quality responses, the firm will address the specific risks posed by the other participants and their responsibilities within the firm's engagements and QC system. Now let's talk about third-party providers. Here is a graphical depiction of the definition of third-party providers from the adopting release, which can be found on page 53. The definition can also be found in paragraph A13 in Appendix A to QC 1000. Third-party providers are defined as individuals or organizations, other than other participants, that provide resources or services to the firm that are designed specifically for use in the performance of engagements. For example, purchase methodologies, related templates, and IT applications, or to assist with the operation of its QC system. For example, broker and dealer monitoring systems to track personal financial interest of firm personnel. Some other examples include audit software provider, system security vendor, and a confirmation intermediary. An important distinction of third-party providers from firm personnel and other participants is that these people do not assist the firm with the performance of the firm's engagements or the design, implementation, or operation of the firm's QC system. Their involvement is limited to services or resources provided for use in the firm's QC system or the performance of its engagements. Before we dive into the quality objectives for this component, I would like to remind everyone that the quality objectives we discussed today are required to be established by the firm. QC 1000 specifies required quality objectives for each of the 6 components to which the risk assessment process applies. Quality objectives are a defined term in Appendix A of QC 1000, and they are defined as the desired outcomes in relation to the components of the QC system to be achieved by the firm. Okay, now that we have covered the definitions of various types of people resources related to the firm, let's move on to discussing a set of quality objectives in the resources component. As a reminder, quality objectives are a defined term in Appendix A of QC 1000. They are defined as the desired outcomes in relation to the components of the firm's QC system to be achieved by the firm. The first quality objective in the resources component relates to firm personnel being hired, developed, and retained who have the competence to perform activities and carry out responsibilities for the operation of the firm's QC system and the performance of the firm's engagements in accordance with applicable professional and legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. Competence consists of having the knowledge, skill, and ability that enable individuals to act in accordance with applicable professional and legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. Competence is measured both qualitatively and quantitatively. Understanding the competence needed to carry out responsibilities for the operation of the firm's QC system and the performance of the firm's engagements assists a firm in identifying its personnel needs. This understanding also assists a firm in identifying areas for personnel development. Competence can be developed through an appropriate combination of education, professional experience in accounting and auditing with proper supervision, and training such as CPE. The next quality objective in the resources component relates to the firm personnel's commitment to quality. The quality objective requires firm personnel to demonstrate a commitment to quality through their actions and behaviors, and development and maintenance of the competence to perform their roles. A commitment to quality can be demonstrated through a person's actions and behaviors, including consistent adherence to firm policies and procedures, demonstrating key professional attributes like objectivity, integrity, and due professional care, and taking the initiative to develop and maintain competence. Conversely, a lack of commitment to quality can be seen through actions and behaviors such as inconsistent compliance with professional standards, cheating on professional development and compliance exams, or a check-the-box approach to professional development. This quality objective and the prior quality objective work together in addressing competence from the perspective of both the firm and individual. The firm and its personnel have responsibilities for developing and maintaining competence that will support the operation of the firm's QC system and the performance of the firm's engagements in accordance with applicable professional and legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. As a reminder, the governance and leadership component also addresses the topic of tone at the top and commitment to quality. This quality objective extends the commitment to quality to firm personnel, so it is not limited to only those in leadership roles. These quality objectives address the assignment of firm personnel and individuals who are other participants in the firm's engagements, quality control roles, and other firms' engagements. The quality objectives focus on three key aspects of the ability to fulfill the assigned roles: competence, objectivity, and time. Individuals need to have competence to fulfill their assigned roles in accordance with applicable professional legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. As previously discussed, both the individual and the firm play a part in developing a person's competence. The ability to maintain objectivity is essential to performing quality control activities or engagements. A lack of objectivity may, for instance, create an unconscious bias that directly affects quality. Individuals' ability to devote appropriate time to their assignments also affects quality. In addition to the competence, objectivity, and time needed to perform engagements and QC activities, individuals need to have the requisite authority to perform effectively. In the context of engagement activities, the auditing standards already provide authority structures with respect to, for example, supervision and the responsibilities of the engagement partner, and those standards are augmented by firm policies on matters such as consultation. For QC activities, the standard specifies the need for appropriate authority in the quality objective. Another quality objective in the resources component is for firm personnel to comply with the firm's policies and procedures. The firm's QC-related policies and procedures are essential to the proper functioning of an effective QC system. By definition, those policies and procedures are the quality responses the firm has designed and implemented to address quality risks. Firm personnel need to understand those policies and procedures and operate in compliance with them in order for the QC system to operate as designed and achieve its objectives. Additionally, firm personnel need to understand and comply with firm policies and procedures in order for the firm's work on its own engagements and other firms' engagements to be performed appropriately. The last quality objective in the resources component related to people resources includes a quality objective that states that firm personnel should be evaluated at least annually, incentivized to fulfill their assigned responsibilities, and adhere to appropriate standards of conduct, and held accountable for their actions and failures to act. Evaluations help support and promote the continuous development of the competence of firm personnel. The quality objective contemplates that evaluation should be performed at least annually. QC 1000 does not specify the format of or the approach to periodic evaluations. Many firms currently utilize an annual performance review process in order to facilitate such evaluations. Firms may access additional examples and further discussion of this objective in the QC implementation guidance published in November of 2024. This quality objective, which refers to accountability and incentives, is principles-based, and firms will be able to design and implement incentive systems based on their nature and circumstances. The appropriate standards of conduct identified in the quality objective include fulfilling engagement and QC responsibilities with competence, integrity, objectivity, and due professional care, and complying with applicable professional and legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures, as described in paragraph 46 of the standard, which we will discuss shortly. Before we discuss requirements related to resources at the network, let us discuss some examples of people resources obtained from a network. In some circumstances, a firm may use resources provided by a network. Since networks may involve a wide variety of arrangements and different degrees of coordination and cooperation across firms, rather than defining the term network, QC 1000 describes these types of arrangements in more general terms. Networks of firms may be structured in a variety of ways and could include arrangements between firms for sharing knowledge, developing and implementing consistent policies, tools, and methodologies, conducting multi-location engagements, or executing other types of business or administrative matters. The chart on the screen depicts some examples of resources and services that may be provided by networks. These examples are not intended to be exhaustive, as there could be other examples, such as a network may provide people resources for monitoring by having certain individuals perform pre-issuance reviews. As noted in the people resources box, people resources could include personnel at other network firms participating on a component audit of a group audit engagement. It may also include an individual providing a supporting role to individuals with assigned responsibilities. Take, for example, a situation where there are a number of firms within a network. At each firm, one individual who meets the definition of firm personnel for their firm must be assigned operational responsibility for the monitoring and remediation process. A single individual from one of the network firms or from elsewhere in the network may support those individuals with operational responsibility at each firm. As a reminder, at each firm, there's only one individual assigned the operational responsibility under paragraph 12 of QC 1000, and that individual must be firm personnel. As noted in the other network services box, networks may also have a centralized independence function managed by network personnel. The examples listed in the other network services box could be provided by people, technological, or intellectual resources, depending on how the network provides the resource. For example, training programs and materials could be provided as an intellectual resource or delivered by individuals within the network as a people resource. Now we will discuss the requirements in QC 1000 related to networks. If a firm uses resources or services from the network it belongs to or from a third-party provider, the firm needs to obtain an understanding of how the network or third-party provider develops and maintains the resources or services. For example, if a firm uses a centralized independence function managed by the network, it would need to understand how firm personnel are being selected for independence confirmation testing and how often. A firm that is not affiliated with a network is not required to establish a quality objective related to network provided resources, and therefore would not identify quality risks or related quality responses. Notwithstanding that a firm may use resources from a network or a third-party provider, the firm remains responsible for the use of these resources in its QC system and the performance of its engagements as applicable. Consideration of the nature of the resources provided by the network or third-party providers, how and to what extent the resources will be used, and the general characteristics of the third-party provider will assist the firm in determining whether it needs to supplement or adapt such resources. The firm is responsible for taking any necessary actions in using a resource from a network or third-party provider to enable the resource to function effectively. In addition, if the firm discovered a problem with the design or operation of the resource, it may need to communicate such problems to the network or third-party provider so that the resource can effectively operate. For example, if a people resource from the network provides support to the individual assigned operational responsibility for a firm's compliance with ethics and independence requirements, the person from the network might need information related to the firm's restricted entities in order to facilitate independence confirmations. And the firm might need to establish clear lines of communication protocols so that the firm can provide feedback to the network regarding the performance of the person from the network, so that any performance issues and training needs can be addressed collaboratively. Before we discuss the specified quality responses in the resources component related to people resources, I'd like to highlight a few reminders about specified quality responses in general. In addition to the quality responses that firms design on their own through the risk assessment process, QC 1000 also includes specified quality responses. Specified quality responses are mandated policies and procedures that apply in some cases to all firms, and in other cases only to firms with a larger PCAOB audit practice. These specified quality responses are not intended to be comprehensive. Consequently, the specified quality responses alone are not sufficient to enable the firm to achieve all established quality objectives. Firms are required to include their own quality responses as well. Both the specified quality responses and the quality responses the firm designs and implements on its own are critical in addressing the firm's quality risks. One last important point is that designing and implementing appropriate quality responses, that is, the firm's policies and procedures, standardize the firm's actions and can help a firm to consistently comply with applicable professional and legal requirements. The first specified quality response for resources requires the firm to have policies and procedures for firm personnel to adhere to appropriate standards of conduct. The reference to appropriate standards of conduct reflects a number of concepts in existing PCAOB standards, including fulfilling responsibilities with professional competence, integrity and objectivity, due professional care, including the exercise of professional skepticism, and complying with applicable professional and legal requirements in the firm's policies and procedures. Firm personnel are individually responsible for complying with the firm's standards of conduct, and the firm's policies and procedures around these standards of conduct are intended to result in firm personnel being held accountable for their behavior and actions. This includes evaluating firm personnel's adherence to such standards of conduct, addressing deviations, and holding personnel accountable for fulfilling their engagement and quality control responsibilities, including through the firm's incentive system. The standards of conduct included in this specified quality response are foundational to fulfilling not only engagement responsibilities, but also QC responsibilities. I want to highlight that previous quality control standard, QC 40, addressed requirements regarding the competencies of engagement partners and, by extension, EQRs. Paragraph 47 of QC 1000 both expands the required competencies for engagement partners and requires certain competencies for other firm personnel in engagement roles commensurate with their responsibilities. I will describe the competencies on the next slides, but first I want to point out that the list of competencies in this requirement is identified as including, since it is not intended to be comprehensive. Now let's dive into the competencies the engagement partner and, commensurate with their responsibilities, other firm personnel participating in engagement should have. The competencies include applying existing requirements for engagement partners to everyone in an engagement role at a level commensurate with their responsibilities. The competencies are an understanding of, among other things, the importance of exercising sound judgment, including the ability to be objective and exercise professional skepticism, the role of the firm's QC system in the performance of engagements, such as through engagement quality reviews and the consultation process, and responsibilities with respect to the performance and supervision of the engagement. To reflect changes in the environment since the existing QC standards were issued, QC 1000 requires competency related to understanding the subject matter of attestation engagements. Let's continue on with the competencies required by this specified quality response. They also include applying existing requirements for engagement partners related to understanding the industry in which the company operates to everyone in an engagement role at a level commensurate with their responsibilities. For example, this may include understanding the applicable standards, industry-specific risks, and industry-specific estimates. QC 1000 also requires competencies related to understanding the internal control framework and technology used by the company. Consistent with existing requirements, QC 1000 requires everyone in the engagement role, commensurate with their responsibilities, to obtain an understanding of the use of technology by the company in preparation of financial statements and related internal controls. QC 1000 also expands the understanding to include the technological and intellectual resources used by the auditors in performing engagement procedures. Regarding technological and intellectual resources, QC 1000 requires an understanding of how and whether it is appropriate to use these resources in performing the engagement. This specified quality response does not imply that the engagement partner or other firm personnel participating in an engagement need to be knowledgeable about how such resources were developed. QC 1000 requires firms to provide mandatory training at least annually to firm personnel, including training on applicable professional and legal requirements to develop and maintain their competence and enable them to fulfill their assigned roles in accordance with applicable professional and legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. This specified quality response provides firms the ability to determine the type and extent of training necessary based on their personnel and the nature and circumstances of the firm and its engagements. For example, a firm may determine that training is necessary on a wide array of topics for a certain level of staff within the firm. Another firm may determine that training is necessary for one or more staff in a certain area due to a new engagement or as a result of an area of development identified as part of a performance evaluation. A firm may also decide that it is necessary to repeat training as a periodic reminder of existing requirements, such as those relating to internal control over financial reporting. Ultimately, the type and extent of training should be directed at whatever is necessary to enable firm personnel to fulfill their assigned QC and engagement roles in accordance with applicable professional legal requirements and the firm's policies and procedures. When designing their training programs and requirements, in addition to this specified quality response over providing mandatory training, firms may want to consider whether additional training should be mandated as part of the firm's policies and procedures to address other topics of QC 1000 beyond what is required in the standard. For example, a firm could also consider recent engagement deficiencies and other QC deficiencies it has experienced when planning its training programs. The specified quality response in paragraph 49 relates to the quality objective in paragraph 44G. As a reminder, paragraph 44G provides that firm personnel are evaluated at least annually, incentivized to fulfill their assigned responsibilities, and adhere to appropriate standards of conduct through compensation plans and compensation decisions regarding performance that appropriately prioritize quality considerations and held accountable for their actions and failures to act. Specific to the individual's assigned ultimate responsibility and accountability for the QC system as a whole, and operational responsibility and accountability for the QC system as a whole, the specified quality response in paragraph 49 requires the firm's periodic performance evaluations of these individuals to take into account the results of the firm's evaluation of its QC system. Evaluation of a firm's QC system is addressed in paragraphs 77 through 78 of the standard. And as a reminder, QC 1000 is not prescriptive regarding the firm's periodic performance evaluation for individuals in oversight roles. And a firm has flexibility in determining its approach to comply with this specified quality response. For example, the firm may set targets and measure the outcome of the evaluation of the QC system against those targets. As an example, the firm may consider the individual's actions taken in response to identified quality control deficiencies and major QC deficiencies, including the timeliness and effectiveness of such actions. In addition, based on its individual facts and circumstances, a firm may identify personnel in addition to those assigned ultimate responsibility and accountability, and those assigned operational responsibility and accountability for the QC system as a whole, whose performance evaluations need to consider the results of the evaluation of the firm's QC system. Laws or regulations may establish requirements for professional licensing or other qualifications of the firm and firm personnel. Under this specified quality response, the firm is required to have policies and procedures regarding licensure such that the firm and firm personnel hold the required licenses or qualifications. This would include policies and procedures that address such matters as the jurisdictions where firm and firm personnel are required to hold licenses or other qualifications, and where the firm and such firm personnel comply with the jurisdiction's requirements. This specified quality response and the specified quality response about providing mandatory training are related. For example, in implementing policies and procedures regarding licensure, a firm may implement a training program that helps personnel comply with educational requirements for their licenses to remain valid. Before we wrap up today's staff presentation, I just wanted to remind everyone of our QC implementation webpage located on the PCAOB's website. We continue to update it as we develop additional implementation resources. These include a staff presentation of an overview of QC 1000, as well as staff guidance documents covering aspects of QC 1000 and the related amendments to AS 2901. The QC implementation webpage also includes a phone number and form for contacting the PCAOB regarding standards-related inquiries. If you subscribe to PCAOB News, you will receive a notification when the page is updated for new resources. For more information on the standard and related amendments, please also see PCAOB release number 2024-005 on the PCAOB's website. Thank you for listening and have a great day.